Hi, everybody. Still have a couple minutes left before I start, but I saw there were a bunch of people waiting, so I opened the doors. Oh, I guess I should share my screen. That would help. Okay. I had trouble getting my screen to share. All right, let's try that again. Let's see, I'll give it another minute. No, the numbers are not going up, so all right, I guess I'll go ahead and get started because I have a lot to cover, of course, as always. So hello, everyone. Today's webinar, cataloging webinar, is titled Correcting LS2 Cataloging Import Errors in 5X. And of course, I'm Kim Mumbauer, one of the product managers here at TLC. With me is Rhiannon Williams. She's also a product owner at TLC. Both of us focus on cataloging and title and item metadata. That's our main primary focus, although we do a lot of other things at the same time. Before I get going, I did want to remind everyone, if you have any questions during the session, use the Q&A widget there at the bottom of your Zoom screen. That way, Rhiannon is monitoring the questions. If they're in chat, we sometimes lose them, so we might not get them answered. I'm going to pause, hopefully at some point, and Rhiannon will interrupt me if there's an urgent question. And I'm going to try to stop a few minutes early so we can answer any remaining questions. I'm not sure how far I'll get. Correcting import errors can be interesting. They do things sometimes that you're not expecting, and I don't know what we're going to encounter. So anyway, but I'm going to demonstrate and discuss how to correct import errors in LS2 cataloging 5X. Before I get started, I just have a quick overview. I've got a few slides here just to provide a summary of some information, primarily for use if you look at the recording later. I will be talking about all of these things during this session, but I wanted to at least give you a kind of a heads up on what we're going to talk about, what will be used. So let me move to the next screen. There are some resources available to you for having to do with import as well as import errors. LS2 Cataloging Help has a whole section on import, including error messaging and a very helpful topic called merge holdings, which tells you the standard numbers that are used in, actually it shows you all the matching criteria and some other flow charts so you can see the process. So I'll be showing you that in the software itself when I exit out of the slide deck. So hang on, I'll be covering that in more detail. There's a document available in Cataloger's Corner in the cataloging workflows folder called titled Import Error Corrections in 5X. I'm in the middle of revising it and updating it, but it's still useful. In the meantime, when I get it ready and it's uploaded into the website, I'll let everybody know by email that the document's ready. I'm just revising it to get it more concise. And there are some new error messages that are showing up that are not on that document. I will have to revise the document again in 5.8.0, which is the release coming up later this year, because import had some development that's included in 5.8.0, and there are at least a couple of new error messages that you might be seeing after that. And also in LS Community and the training menu, there's a whole section on LS2 cataloging, and there's some documents and videos on import, which you might find helpful. All right, I want to go quickly through the matching criteria that are used by import in the normal or full import, and that's the four-step process. So the matching criteria, there are 5 or 6. First, it looks for a title control number or a standard number match, and this is a list of standard numbers that it's looking for. Current development is finishing up here with removing the GPO and the SUDOC standard numbers from the matching criteria. I think Hannah is in the list. Thank you, Hannah, for telling me about this problem. A customer has a very extensive government document collection, and they were using the 5X migration sandbox and realized that import was matching on the wrong titles, and that was because of the SUDOC and GPO numbers are not unique. I haven't cataloged a lot of government documents over the years, and I just hadn't realized that those are not unique numbers. So they're still, of course, supported in the editor, but they're just not used by import for matching. So 580 will have that improvement. Then import is also looking for title format. That's the MARC record format. Looks at specific bytes and codes in the fixed fields, fixed data. I always get this mixed up. Fixed length data fields. If it's an e-resource format title, there's also an additional check of the URL that's in the record in the MARC 856 field. If it's it does some things. If it's a unique, if it's different from the matching record, then it adds the record separately, or if it's a match, then it continues on with whatever it needs to do. That's what the import I'm talking about. It also looks for language, and that's the main language. It looks for title, the longest word in the main title, subfield A of the MARC 245, and the longest word in the author, in that main entry author field. And then if that's how it identifies a match. Now there's at least one, there'll be 2 in 580, an option that you only matches on title control number. Those are 2 options. One is right currently, it says only insert OCLC control number. In 580, you'll also be seeing another option that says only replace existing content, but that matches only on title control number. All right, I wanted to do a real quick run through of this workflow. I'll be using it as I show you everything, but I wanted to have it in writing so it's a good reference for you in the future if you look at this recording again. So we always recommend using a separate import error title space if you do regular importing. It just keeps it separate from all of your other title spaces that have ongoing work. You don't have to do that, but we recommend it. Within a short period of time after you've imported 1 or more files, you really do need to review the results of that import. And you want to go to the Import History tab, and you'll see the files listed there. I'll be showing you this in the software in just a few minutes. You can also download an error report and download a MARC error record file. And we'll talk about that more in future. Then you go to the title space containing the import error, and you start doing the work to figure out what you need to do to fix that. You have to look at titles and items and matching titles, and you look at the MARC record. There's all sorts of things you have to do. And there's a document, of course, to help you to figure out next steps, and I'll be showing you some of the most common errors here today. And then you can open that MARC file, that MARC error file, in a separate external MARC editor like Bibliofile or MARCedit. Sometimes you need to look to see what the item holdings field contained or other data that you might have in that source record, just to see what it looks like, what you need to do. It helps you define the next step. And the final result of all that is you've looked through the error report and took care of all the items and titles that are listed on that error report. You've corrected anything that needed correcting, and you've saved the items, or you have published the titles, or you republished the titles, or for those import error drafts that you found out you didn't actually need to keep, there was no reason to use it. You just have to remove them from your import error title space. So in the end, you have cleaned up everything that had to do in that was listed in that one report. Okay, that was it really fast, but don't worry, I'll be going over all this again. So let me get into the software. And before I do that, let me just show you where the resources are for you. So here's LS2 Cataloging Help. There's an import topic right here, if on the left, or you could also search, of course. The import error messages are listed here. This does need a little revision because we have added since this topic was first written, and we've removed some things. And there's also this handy merge holding topic, which lists the matching criteria, and it has some nice flow charts to help you see what import is doing. Um, Import processes those records very quickly. So while yes, I listed title control number, standard number, I listed those 5 criteria. It actually does them all pretty much simultaneously in the same millisecond. So it's sort of deceptive to see these flow charts because it looks like it moves smoothly through those steps. It does, but it's going really fast. So that's helpful. And then on community, LS Community, I'm in Cataloger's Corner. For those of you who aren't too sure, when you log into LS Community, let me get back to the home page. It does take a moment to get in here. Click on Software and Support, and then click on Cataloger's Corner. And then it goes down to the Cataloging Workflow folder, and you'll see import error corrections in 5x. So here's that current document. It's in the middle of revision, and I'll let you know when that revised version is available. So that's a helpful thing to use. Let me just move my Zoom thing out of the way. Under training, I just wanted to point this out. Under 5x, I wish the website worked a little faster. LS2 cataloging. There's some things here on import. You have to go back to one of the earlier versions. Import has had some changes since then, but it does give you some basic information on import. So that's additional information. And I'm sure the training team is doing a number of recordings. Let me see what's going on with their recordings of recent days. Let me just remind you that these are the Cataloging Friday. Today's webinar will be posted here as soon as I get it converted and uploaded. But the training team is doing regular webinars, and you can always look through here. They do cover cataloging to some degree here in this one, so you might find something of use there. We don't want to leave you struggling. We want to try to help. And of course, as always, if you are hitting an import error message you just don't know what to do with, contact support, put in a case through NetSuite because, well, we can help you. Rhiannon and I are sort of they call it the third level. I think it's called third level expert. At any rate, when the support technicians have any kind of cataloging questions and concerns, they contact us and we get involved in helping them figure out what's happening. And sometimes we correct records for customers. So we'll probably get pulled in at some point too. All right, so let's get started. Any questions before I start? I know I haven't really talked about much yet, but is there anything that's a burning question at the moment? Okay.
No questions so far.
All right. Hopefully. I am going to warn you, I have a couple tips to make before I get started. First of all, things sometimes don't go as I expect. And although I planned my demonstrations, I have no idea if I'm going to actually hit the right flow that I'm expecting. But you'll see me go through the steps that I would take to figure out what to do next. So that may or may not be helpful. I'm just going to warning you in advance. 2 things to mention as an additional tip. You might fix one import error using that mark error record file, and you re-import the title, and that first error gets fixed, but then import finds one or more other errors. So just be prepared. It doesn't happen often, but import, when it finds the first error, it stops. It doesn't process the entire record and tell you of all the problems it sees. It just finds a problem and tells you right then and there. So just be aware of that there are occasions, it's only happened to be once in about 4 years, where I fixed one error, and then when I re-imported it, another error popped up. It happens. And secondly, we are going to rely greatly on the publish or republish button that's in the draft title. That helps you identify the title state and what you need to do. It's an important identifier to tell you what to do next. So just don't, make sure you keep an eye on that publish button. All right, let me go to import history and let's take a look at that before we get started. So within hopefully the same day or within a day or two of your importing a file or two, you should really check your import history to confirm whether it was successful. And this one right here, it's white, there's no red or pink background, and it successfully imported 1 out of 1 records. Now, the yellow ones are just an alert telling you that, yeah, it imported some, but not all. and that's why it's yellow. And it gives you the count. It imported 1 out of 2, 12 out of 20, for example. And on the right here under Actions, you'll see your report. That's the text file that you can download, and the mark record file containing your error title records with items. It's not your source file. It's just the ones that triggered the error. And that's helpful for us because we need that when we're working on import errors. And then, of course, no files were processed is pink or red to let you know that nothing happened. But you've got the same options here on the right. And if you are a user who imports from multiple locations, you may sometimes have to click on only uncheck showing my files and see everybody's files that imported over the last few days in order to find a particular error import file that was triggered an error of some issue of some sort. I think I'm the only one that's been using this particular database for a while. Here's one. So you'll see other users here. Okay, back to the problem at hand. Let's get going. So the first step, of course, is to review my errors. I've already downloaded my import error report and downloaded my import error mark file to make it a little faster so I don't have to keep going back and forth. So let me open up the first of the error files that I want to open and show you. Let me get to my notes here, if I can get my cursor to cooperate. So I'm going to start with a few of the common title import errors first. Thought about it for several days over whether I should just routinely work my way down this report and jump from title to item import errors, but I thought it would be confusing to jump back and forth. So I'm just going to focus on title import errors, and then I'll switch to item import errors just to make it a little more straightforward in explaining. So first I look at the report and I see an import that didn't succeed. So I download that report and open it, and this is the result. And you can see it gives you a little information how to access the title and what the problem was. Here's the message. This happens to be an item error. We'll come back to that. But this is a title error here that we're going to deal with. Now this is your document. At this point, it's your document. You can make notes on it. You can move things around. Everyone works differently. Sometimes, some days I just start at the top and I work down. Other days I just do all of the same error message and move on. It doesn't really matter as long as the ultimate goal is to get through all of these errors and do something with those records one way or another, then you can say you're done. All right, so first I open the error report, then I go to the title space that has the import error, which is right here because I have a separate file. Now I could use the status column and sort this so that all the item import errors are together, because when you hover over the little triangle, you'll see item import error. And all the titles import errors are down here. Everyone works differently, so you can pick the way that works best for you. I just sorted by title here right now, real quickly, because I want to look for a particular title. Okay, let's go back to my error report. I've also downloaded the file, which I'll open in just a moment. So I'm going to start with, I've got to get to my notes. This one, control number exists in database on a different record. What that's telling us is that there is a matching title. Sorry, may not be a matching title, but a existing title has the same title control number as your import title. And there's two different causes. One is the matching criteria don't match. That's the most frequent occurrence. So in this, we'll take a look and see if that's the case for this one error. I think this is the one that has a different format. Yep. The other cause, which I'll show after at the end of the session if we have time. If not, I will write a blog post on it. I'll wait and talk about that later. But there's a couple different causes for this error. And I'm going to talk about the most common one, which is where the import record does not match on all 6 or 5 criteria so that it treats it as a new record. And the next step for import is to save the record to the database, but it checks for a control number already existing, and that's the case here. All right, hope that made some sense here. I'm just going to copy this control number, save a little time. So we want, and I always have trouble finding it, this one. So I open the import error that's in my draft state here. And I see at a glance right away, the publish button is active. So that means this title has not been saved to the database. This is not a draft of a matching title. And I already knew it hadn't matched, right, because of the import error. So I've got an error. It's a book format. So I know there is a matching title existing in my database. That's the error message. I want to open, and I'm going to open another version of LS2 cataloging because that's how I work in two separate tabs. It's just my way of working. Let me move my Zoom thing out of the way. Let me get down to advanced search. I'm going to search for that control number. I could search by title, but then you might get 5, 6, 10 results. So it's a lot easier to look for control number in this case. And I see right away, oh yeah, this is an ebook format. My import title, I'm back to my draft import title now. It says book. Okay, so I've imported a record that happens to have the same title control number as this ebook, but that's why it didn't match, is the format is different. So my next step is to go to the mark error file. So let me open that. And I've got it right here. And I'm just looking at it to see what is on here. Is there anything on this record that I need to, I do want to preserve it, right? It's a book. It's not an ebook. This is definitely a book, right? So that means to me that, oh yeah, okay, I need to preserve this record. I can't save it at the moment. I can't publish it because of the control number. So I need to replace the control number on this record. I don't need to do anything more with this ebook record. It was just confirming a different format because this is the main one of the common reasons for this error is you have a format change or a language change. And this happens especially when you're importing vendor records in the hopes of replacing an on-order item, on-order title, brief record title, but the on-order or brief record is missing some of the matching criteria, like language is configured or format's different. And so it throws this error. So I have my mark edit file. Can you all see it? I've raised the font, but I can make the font a little bit bigger if it's a little small. Um, hopefully you can see me opening this. Can't tell at this point. So here's my control number. And so obviously that's the same control number for the ebook record. So I want to do something to replace it. I could replace the whole thing. I could do something I could just add a prefix. As long as it's unique. So I just usually add a prefix or something instead of replacing the whole record, maybe the whole title control number. Maybe that'll be helpful at some point. Doesn't really matter what you do as long as it's different. Now I could add an item right here, but I don't have to. I could wait and add the item in LS2 cataloging. Maybe I haven't received the book yet. Maybe I just know it's coming, but it hasn't arrived yet. So I don't have an item barcode to scan. So I want to save this to a new output file. I've made the correction. I can do anything else I want on the record, but I'm done. So let me go ahead and file save as. You need to save it to a new output file. I'm just going to call this demo belly. Great title here. Typically when I work, I go through my error report and I save all of my mark corrections to the same output file. Then I re-import them all together. But for the purposes of today's demonstration, I want to kind of finish off this error. So I'm going to go ahead and import this record. My server is pretty fast. So I'm just going to do one at a time. But typically that's how I work is I batch them together in one file. And then I do all of the importing and fix the results of all those at one time. Okay, back to my title space. So I've got a correction. This is a draft. I'm going to go ahead and import that file. Is it making sense so far? Let me know if I'll be repeating this workflow multiple times here, but do speak out if you want to have a question. I'm going to leave it draft for now. So I'm going to select my regular title space, and then I'm going to have errors going to my import error space just in case. And I'll just leave it all defaults. Shouldn't take very long at all. So checking to make sure it didn't have another error, and it didn't. So let me go back to my, let me look from import error first. Do I have 2 records? Nope. So then I go back to my other space that I selected, and I do have 1 record. All right, so here is my good record, my book record. If if the book is on my cart, I've received the box of books in the meantime, I can go ahead and add that item. I can just add the item and save it. But ultimately, I want to publish this record. So I'm going to go ahead and publish because that's the next step. It's good to go. It's a book. it's ready. So I'm going to publish it. So then when I ever receive that box of books from my vendor, I can search for the record and find it. But now what do we do with that import error? Now, there's a couple options here, of course. Everything's got options. Um, I personally remove them. If I don't no longer need this import error draft, I remove it from the title space. You could let it sit there until you finish reviewing the report, but sometimes you have multiple files worth of import errors in this title space, and it may be a long time before you actually finish, and it's kind of in the way you get, it might add confusion. I have three import errors from three different files in this space, so it'll be a while before I'm ready to have this cleaned out. So I personally remove it as I go. So I'm finished with this draft. I don't need it anymore. I imported it. It was never saved to the database, so I can just remove it. I could also discard the draft. I could have opened the title record and clicked discard draft. Same thing. I think it says delete. Could have done the same thing. Okay, so we're done with that error. Isn't that great? Now, this is a little more complicated, but I'm going to go ahead. I think we've got time to do a second, maybe not. Thinking ahead. This is a little more complicated one, but I think I need to show you because it uses compare. All right, so let me go back to my error report. I'm trying to figure out how much time I have to get through these other errors. Let me do it quickly. It's on a different, here it is, House of Wax. Same error message. So let me get this import. And it's also going to be for a format change. I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to actually do it because of time constraints. If we have time at the end of the session, I'll come back and show you. I'm just going to talk through what I would do. So here we have House of Wax DVD. That's great. Because of that error message, I know there's an existing record. So let me find that. I'm going to go to this other tab that I'm using because that's how I like to work. Keep my import errors open. So I'll bring up this other record and, oh, video recording. That's why it found a match. My record, and this is common. Let me open the record. Common issue. I explain this to customers quite often. House of Wax. So the customer, in the cases I've helped on anyway, the customer exported this record, the video recording record, out of their database, which is why the control number is there. And then they modified it so that it would be a DVD format. So the customer, me, I added the 007 field. That was what was missing. So I could make this a DVD format. Now, I could have added other things to this record. It's a pretty good record. So I do want to keep this record, and it has one item. So now what do I need to do? So let's go back to this. Could I delete this? That's one option. I could delete the draft and start over. What I need to do is, and that's what I would probably do, is replace the control number on this mark record and import it again. By deleting the draft, you delete that item too. That item is partially saved. It's not fully saved. By partially saved, I mean it's an import error on a title that has not been published. You can't find it when you do a search by barcode number or if you're an LS2 staff. You won't find it because it hasn't been indexed yet. But it's partially saved. So if I imported the same record with that same item, it would give me a duplicate barcode error. So there's some ways around that, which I won't go into unless we have time at the end of the session. I probably need to write blog posts on all these things or do separate videos. That there are some ways around it by using compare, where we would import. I would probably delete this draft, import this record again, replace the control number. Then I can save that and then use compare to replace the House of Wax. It's a video recording. Did that make sense? I hope. Probably not. But I really need to get onto these other errors. I'd rather show you more errors than go into some of these more complicated issues. I might need to do an advanced webinar on import errors at some point. We might have time, and we'll be probably continuing on our webinars next spring. But I do want to move on to another example because I need to show you some of these others. All right, let's back to my original error report. And I want to talk about this one if you can see it. E-resource record does not have an item 856. And here is the title. Go ahead and copy this just to, in case I need that for some reason. So I'm going to go back to my import error title space. So I look at the report. I come to the title space and look for the import error draft, if I can find it. And here it is. It's an ebook, right? I know that's with that error message, it's going to be one of the electronic resource titles. And here it is. And I see why it told me that, because there's no URL in the record. And if I want to confirm that, I come over to my bibliophile. Go ahead and close this one and open up my particular error file, which is right here. That's not it. That's the book. Hang on. It's right here. It was a little thin one, so I didn't see it first. So here's my record, and you can see I don't have an 856, which contains a URL. This is a courtesy. I chose to send this as draft when I imported this record file, because I like to review records after I import quite often. So as a courtesy, it's letting me know that, oh yeah, there's no URL. That means this record will not show up in LS2 pack. Of course, it hasn't been published yet, but even if I publish it, it will not show up in LS2 pack because it's missing that URL. It doesn't have at least one 856 field. Did that make sense? And I'll show you an example of that. So in another title space, I had imported this ebook. Oh, sorry, it's an e-journal. I published this title as an e-journal. I imported as published, and then it never showed up in LS2 pack. So that's when I came back to look at this record. I saw, oh yeah, well, I forgot the e-resource. For some reason, import's not letting you know. It used to tell you with you published or you sent the title as draft. It would tell you when there was missing an 856. So I've got a bug card getting onto the development board, so they will fix this at some point. But I'm telling you mainly so you can start thinking about if you're troubleshooting why an ebook isn't showing up in LS2 pack, check the title record and make sure there's an 856. Okay, back to this particular ebook. The solution to this one is nice and straightforward. So obviously I can do some other work on this record to verify, but I'll just go over here for today, just to add this electronic resource item. And let me copy this URL that I found online. I had to kind of jury rig it so it would actually match a vendor. Then I add my vendor, which is lib.overdrive.com. And then I want to add my location. So right now my default was Washington. Do I need to add any of these other people? Well, in my database, we're a shared database. We have multiple locations. We let everybody see whatever ebook titles we have. In this case, it's an adult ebook. I don't have to worry about age level for this example. I've selected that. You can pick whatever location you need, and then I could add a link text or something if I wanted to. I'm not going to take time today, but I save the electronic item. And I could work on these verifications if I want. For today, I won't bother, but I will point out the reason why this is showing as unverified, because it's in one of those name plus title data fields, in case you wondered. That's a whole other story. All right, so I see that this is a green active publish button, which means it's never been published to the database. So if I want this record to show up, I need to publish it. And that's what I do. It's always a relief when you have these really straightforward import errors to correct. And that took that record out of the title space. All right. Okay, let's move on to another title error. Let's see. I think I'm on a different, I'm looking at my notes here real fast. I'm in a different error report because I've got 3 here. I think I did this one next. Yep. So this is the error. Title could not be hang on, let me get this a little bit bigger for you. If you could read this. Title could not be matched when replacing bib data. This is a file of records that I imported using the replace existing content option. And it's titled camouflage. Go back to my record. Camouflage. So this tells me that even though and this often happens when you're importing, especially a vendor file where you have multiple orders getting combined, and you kind of think that maybe the records are better records than what you have, or you might want to automatically replace any content for a matching title to use a better record. But in this case, this record doesn't exist in the database already. And I can double check that by copying the control number or using the searching by author or title. Um, here's my import error. I usually open that first just to get oriented. Then I go over here and look for the see if there's an existing record. So I use that, and there isn't one. If I'm not too sure, I could do another search by title, and it's by David Prozini. Oh, I do have this, but it's a book on CD. Back to my import error. This is a book, so it's not one of these records. So we know that this is standalone. So it just was chosen. It was mixed in with other records that did have matching titles. So what's my next step? Well, there's no item on this one. So let me check the MARC record just to make sure that there wasn't an item that something weird happened. Come on, open up. And there wasn't an item, so that's okay. Sometimes weird things happen, so I always double check to be methodical. Check the time. Oops, okay, gotta keep moving. So I could go ahead. The next step then would be, all right, is this book on my cart, on my shelf, ready to catalog? Do I have an item barcode for it? If yes, then I'm going to come in here and add an item. I'm not going to well, I might as well add an item. It doesn't take that long to add a new item. I'll make it available. You could make it in processing. I think this is, to be honest, I don't even know what this book is about, but he usually does fiction, I believe. If anyone knows, let me know. I'm just going to pick fiction for right this moment. This looks like fiction, so with that Dewey call number, uh, whatever you do for your library. So save the item, which we're good to go. I'm not going to take time to do anything further. I'm going to publish the record. I don't need to, there's no unverified authorities to deal with, so I can publish the record. Now I have found, and I haven't looked recently to see if it's still a problem, when you publish the record, this next time you open the record, sometimes this pink import error message is still displayed. And the only way to get rid of that is to just make an edit on this title tab. That seems to fix it. I haven't, if anyone knows, let me know in chat whether you're still seeing that occur. I'm going to go ahead and publish. I'll find out here in a second. Seems like it's sometimes, oh good, they fixed that bug. I haven't checked it in a while, so. Okay, so that took care of that. Let me go back to my import error space, and I no longer see camouflage listed because when you publish, it removes the draft title out of the space. So that was nice and straightforward too. All right, there's a couple of common title import errors that I could not trigger. I tried mightily, but could not trigger. I'm going to go ahead and move on to item barcodes, and if there's time, I'll come back and talk about them real briefly. So let's move on to some item barcode errors. Okay, let me get back to error text first. That's what I usually do. Open the error report. I have 3 of them here, so I have to get to the right place. So I want to use this one. It's called summer food, and it tells me that the barcode subfield is missing from the holdings tag. Common problem. Can occur for a variety of reasons, but it's a fairly common issue. Now, first I'll open the title, the MARC error record. Maybe it's because I'm so used to MARC. I've used MARC for so many years that I just like to look at the MARC record. I don't know. I end up using to look at it anyway, half the time or 3/4 of the time when I'm doing import errors. I always end up looking at it anyway, but I'm just double checking, and yeah, I forgot the barcode. Of course, I did that on purpose in my defense. But if I remember right, I also added some other subject entries here. So I was trying to do a merge selected, excuse me, where I add subjects and notes. So I do have some other data here to expand the record. So that's one of the things that factors into my decision on what to do next. So back to my import error title space. I'm looking for that title, summer food, and it's not here. With this particular error, oops, hang on, wrong space. Got to keep myself straight because when I'm talking, I lose track of where I was. I'm really not this ditzy all the time. Um, so I did a search by control number. I copied the control number from the report, and I see there is a record. Well, why don't I have a draft in my import error title space? Import does not give you a draft of a matching title when it cannot create an item. So this is just the way it works. It does, if there's no barcode, it can't create an item. So import, the decision was made years ago that import will not create a draft for no reason, because you'd end up having to use this matching title anyway for whatever you decide to do. So now I can just, I can have a couple choices here. I can add a new physical item through LS2 cataloging. Since I forgot to add it here, I could just take this data and add that new item. But what if I wanted to make use of these extra enrichment that I added? Now I added fast entries, so I could certainly create a topical subject and just have a local authority for that, where I could add that URI. That's for the permanent link. But a genre, we don't have the ability yet to be able to add this as an authority or to the glossary. We already have this one in the glossary. Do I really need this? These are like decisions you have to make as you're thinking. So I'm just talking through options. So do I want this data? If I do, so the simplest solution is simply to add the new item manually, save it, and you're good to go. You can just move on. The more complicated decision, and I'm just going to point that out to you, is to re-import this record and take out this 949 or add an item here. So I'm just going to go ahead and take out this item because I can add it manually. And I can save the control number there. I don't have to replace that. I just simply have to save the record in order to preserve the subjects and notes that I want to add. And then I'll use that replace existing content. So this is somewhere. And I'll go ahead and do that real fast. So this is a more complicated version, but you might be encountering it when you're doing replace existing content. So I'm just going to show that since import's fairly quick on my server. Import. Demo. And hopefully it'll work. I'm going to click replace existing content. Put my title space in here. I'll say send errors to a different space just in case I did something wrong. It happens, especially when you get interrupted 5 times every couple of minutes. And I'll re-import. Usually just takes a few seconds. Okay, it imported. So I'll go here to my test space. And great. Now, even though it's a local record, because it import modified it, the source is showing as import. I thought I'd mention that in case you have ever wondered about that. So here I have my matched record. Did it replace the content? Well, let's look at genres. So did it do anything? Did it give me, just checking the marked view. It did not replace my, oh, yeah. What's the deal? Okay, I got to investigate that. New bug. This is why things just don't work sometimes the way you expect them to. So let's just back up. Did it give me an import error? I don't think so. I didn't see one with history. No. I did select replace existing content. I'll have to investigate that. Oh, well. But anyway, that would be the step. It would be showing up here. Let me double check because this is a problem that someone reported to me recently. Hang on, it was in the other title space. And this may be the reason for this. Is this this is the matching title or the import title? This looks like the matching title, not the import title. So I'm confused. I'll have to investigate. At any rate, normally that would work and you have the good content that's been added and you move on. I'll have to figure out why that didn't work. Okay, I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Still got time. I've got one more item import error, two more to do, and I can just do this one really fast. Could not find location ID. This is a nice, straightforward error. Got year in Provence. Could not find location ID for, and then it gives you a copy of the item holdings field. And you can see at a glance, it's missing the full holdings code. It only has a portion of, it only has the collection portion of the holdings code. You also get this number, get this error when you have this kind of example where it's missing the entire holdings code subfield. And although I don't have it on this report, you also get the same error if you have a location, but not the short description portion or the collection portion of your holdings code. It does not generate an import error for other reasons. Okay, so to fix that, easy peasy. I want to come back to my import error title space. A Year in Provence is the title we're working on. Now, if there's an item barcode, import can do something with that item and create that item that's missing the holdings code. And this means you can easily fix it here in the title space. So you can see it's missing owning, location, and collection. That's what this error is referring to, right? It could not find the entire holdings code that it needs, which is location plus collection. So it doesn't give you, it doesn't assign even the collection portion. It just waits. So you have to select your location, select your collection. I can expand the shelf location if I need to, make any other changes to the item, but I simply have to save that. Now, look at my green button. It says republish, so that means it's a draft of a matching existing title, and it's grayed out because I haven't touched any of the data on the title tab. Now, I could go ahead and do these steps, and that would, then I could republish it. At that point, once I touch one of these fields here, I can republish. But say I'm busy today, I don't have time, so I'm done with this record. The item got saved. You don't have to republish it if you only add an item. So I'll go back to my title space, and my usual practice is to remove that from the title space just because it's confusing. I don't need to look at it anymore. All right, one more, and then at least I've shown you the ones basic that I wanted to talk about, and that is on this error text here, I think, because of Winn-Dixie. Duplicate barcode. Because of Winn-Dixie is the title. So let me go and find the import error. Okay. Not there. Okay. I selected merge selected content when I chose this. But import found an error, right, with the item immediately because it has a duplicate barcode. So it did not give me a draft. So I know that there is a existing record, perhaps, because there's no draft there. So let me take a look. Wait, I meant to copy the control number. These are part of the investigations that you go through. I'm sorry, I need to look for, hang on. Looking at my notes again. All right, so what I would normally do is try the control number. Let me walk through what I would normally do and show you what can happen. So I come over here because I think, oh, why isn't it? There must be a matching title maybe? With that duplicate barcode, that's sort of what it applies. I can't remember if it searches for a LCCN as a control number. No, but wait, there's no title here. No record showed up with this control number. So I can go back to my error report. I can also open the record file. Either way would work. So if you've already opened your record file, here is that record because of Winn-Dixie. So I could copy and I can see what I did. And this is common for you. Let me go back, take a step back and explain why this could occur. I exported a record out. This is a typical way. Someone exports the record out, makes changes, and they exported the title with items. They forgot to remove an existing item off the record before they imported, and then it showed that duplicate barcode error. So this import doesn't, when it sees an error, it stops. Remember I mentioned that that can happen? It didn't do anything with this item. Didn't make a draft with that item. It just stops. So now I need to search by the item barcode number that was showing as duplicate. That I can't search by here. And there is a record here with that barcode. It's a music CD. It just happens to have a different control number than the one I had imported. Does that make sense? So I've got this music CD and it matches, I believe, on my existing record. Let me go back to my existing record. It is a compact disc. It is film soundtracks, music. This is a music CD, and the leader tells me that. But I see I was using, I believe this is merge selected. Yes, I added some subjects and notes. I won't take time to actually go through that process. I'll just describe it. But if I want to save this record, um, I can re-import it for two reasons. One, if I want to have the item added automatically, I just re-import it. It may find it as a match and add the item. I can manually add that item to LS2 cataloging. But before I re-import it, I have to delete this field so that I only have a new item and I get rid of that duplicate barcode. It's six of one, half dozen of another of decision making. If you decide you want to add that item manually right here, you've got the information right here that I could just copy paste. If I want to keep track of this particular genre that was added, because I was trying to get merge selected where I'd add a subject and note, if this seems important, then I could certainly add that, re-import it. And I can leave the item on here and save this to a new output file and re-import it. Time is it? Or I can remove this and just import it as a new title, or I can add that genre manually. Let me see if I can. I'm not sure if film soundtracks is in here. This is from Fast, so I'm thinking it is going to be in here. So I could add both things manually. If I just have one or two fields to add, then sometimes it's a lot easier to manually do that. Like in this case, I believe motion picture soundbooks was deprecated. I think it's now called film soundtracks. I think that's what I discovered recently. This is obsolete now. I'll leave it there for now, and I can do that, and I can also add my item manually. Oops, save and continue. Oh, yeah, that's fine. And then I can add my item using the data that's in my mark record. I don't think I've showed you that, so let me show you that. And of course, I can always re-import. I can make the changes in the record and re-import. Music CD. What else do I have here? My call number. Oh, this is J music. Sorry. This is juvenile music, children's music in my database. Paste that. Okay, we're good to go. And I republished because I added that genre to the title. Now my republish button is active. So before I leave, if I tried to leave now, I think it would tell me so. Let me try. Let me try to go back. Oh, great. It kept the edit at least because I saved it. So that's good. So to get rid of it out of my title space, I want to republish. We try to help as much as possible. All right, I want to show you one more thing just because you were probably going to encounter it, especially if you're a school. That is related to import, even though it's not an import error. So, and there's no import error report. I just happened to notice it because I knew I'd imported these records on purpose, and why weren't they showing up in my import error space? The title of the titles are called hands-on projects. It's not here. So I went looking for it, and I just thought I'd take a few minutes to talk about it because it's important that you may encounter it. And this is the problem I was talking about, where if you have multiple identical records in the same record file, or you import them within a short period of time, the first record that was processed by import hasn't been fully indexed. This is why we see 4 titles that are exactly identical. The only difference is they have a different item on each one, different location and collection. There are different items on each record. And so it's a little weird. So you're thinking, well, how did that happen? It's because when these records were processed, they were all in the same file. And the first record that happened to start getting saved has not fully indexed. So the second record comes along within a millisecond or two, and it doesn't find anything. So it creates a draft, because I chose draft as my title space, state in import. Now, at some point, depending on how many records you have in a file, at some point, these remaining records that are getting processed will catch that control number that's been saved to the database. That's the first piece of data that's indexed as a control number. And then you'll start getting a different error called control number not found. Control number exists in database. But in this case, I didn't get that because it was processed so quickly. So I have these 4 records. They're all the same. I just need to combine them, the items, to get them onto one. Fastest, easiest ways to use compare. And I wanted to make sure you all know that this is possible. These are drafts, but you can still compare and move items. And you can pick whichever one you want as the base target title, they're all the same record. You can skim down here and make sure that they all have pretty much the same information. So then you want to select each one. You could select all, of course, but it's easier to select each one. I want to move all these items to this record. And I want to come down here and move the items. And I want to delete those titles. We don't need them anymore. So I'm left with one record that has now 4 items. That's just what we wanted to see happen. And I need to publish it. Notice it's green, never been published. It says publish, not republish, and it's dark green. So I publish. You may encounter that, especially if you're a school system, because vendors sometimes combine multiple orders into one record file. And when they're processing records, when they're processing titles, purchase titles, copies, essentially, for each separate locations, they have separate records, and then they just pick the individual records and plop them into a vendor file. Okay, that's all I want to cover. If I have 1 minute, yes, I've got 1 minute left. I can talk about a couple of title import errors that I could not generate. I've seen them a lot in customer databases. I just couldn't seem to hit the right combination. 2 of which are similar. One is called encoding errors were found, unknown mark 8 byte found. The other one is encoding error found, orphaned diacritic. In those 2 errors, what you need to do is work with your mark import error file and try to correct those problems in that mark record itself, and then you'll have to re-import it. So orphan diacritics is fairly straightforward. You figure out which field has the problem. I believe it says which field in the error message. It might say, I think it gives you a copy of it tells you the field number, the tag number in that mark record, and it gives you a portion of the data so you can kind of figure out where it is. Then you just want to replace that corrupted diacritic. That's essentially what it's telling you, is the diacritic got corrupted somehow along the way. And you just have to search online or we had a webinar session on diacritics in LS2 cataloging where we have a couple different ways to do that. And you want to replace the diacritic in the mark record and then re-import it. With the unknown mark 8, sometimes you just have to poke around and see if you see anything weird in the data. It's usually in a note field somewhere. Then you just re-import that. And the third one that I just could not trigger, I see a lot, especially in LS2 pack. The error is had a problem, need to roll back Java lang null pointer exception. I have spent a lot of hours trying to figure out what that null pointer exception is talking about. I look at the mark record, I open up my mark import error and look through it and see if I see anything weird. If I see it, I fix it, of course, and re-import. Half the time I can't find a problem, so I just publish it. I just try publishing that draft to see if it works. And half the time, if not 2/3 of the time, it just publishes fine. So there was something in there that caused that error, but it didn't cause a problem in the database. So it got saved. Typically, that error exception I've seen in LS2 pack is due to a format thing, but at any rate. All right, now there are a bunch of other, not a bunch, there are 5 or 10 other additional import errors that are configured in the database. A developer recently gave me a list of all the import errors that it looks for, but they rarely show up. And so I don't want to share them with you because you probably won't see them ever, I'm hoping. So that's about all. I think I'm looking down to see if I had missed any other item errors that I couldn't trigger. Yeah, both of these errors, I don't think you're going to see much anymore, so I won't talk about them. All right, that's it for now. I'm done. I'm done. Any questions? What lingering concerns do you have? Do you
Yeah,
need more
we've got
videos?
a couple questions here
Okay.
from some people in the Q&A. So I'll just go through these. So the first question's from Hannah, and she asked, will further development include matching on the full 1XX field as opposed to just the subfield A? And I was
I
trying to
have
dive into the requirements for that development, and I couldn't figure out if it was just the subfield A or the whole field.
It actually probably should be looking at more than I had brought that up multiple times since I became a product manager at TLC. Actually, I think I brought it up when I was on library.solution4.x because I got so annoyed when, especially with series titles, the volumes, they're in a series. You've got a subfield N or you got a subseries or a volume number, and it doesn't look at that. Uh, anyway, I have brought this up multiple times with developers, and they're not, they're not too happy about, or they have, and their initial response was, that's just difficult, difficult. Now, that's not going to stop us from trying to get that done, because I think at least it needs to look at all of the content in that Mark 245 subfield A instead of the longest word. That's how some of these mismatches are occurring. But their reasoning is with a full import, with the matching criteria, you've got standard number or title control number, you've got a language and format. So those are all correct. So the title and author is just like an extra confirmation that this is the right record, because they give more, the more reliable matching point is your standard number or title control number. A title and author are important, but title control number, standard number, language, and format are the more reliable matches. We can try, but then how do we want the entire field? All portions, subtitles, title apart, number apart. Um, it gets complicated because it could be the same record based on a standard number, but the title is entered differently in one record compared to another one, especially
Right.
with series. It gets complicated with series. You know how some people catalog the series title, the volume title as the main title, not the, and some
Right.
catalog them as the series title. So we'll think about it. We can get a card going and talk about it and figure out how we could ask that. Um, it would be nice to have that ability with e-resources, with digital ebook, audiobook, digital
Yeah.
resources, because there isn't usually a standard number or title control number to use. So anyway, that's my long, lengthy answer. Worth asking. We will try.
Yeah, for sure. The next question is from Margaret. She was asking about her workflow. So she said that when they get the import error, title could not be matched when replacing bid data. They get that very frequently with some vendors.
Mhm.
And they found that if they remove all the import errors from the workspace and then re-import the file, the errors go away. And she's asking if that's an acceptable workaround or if there's another way she should be handling these.
Do you import just those records or just those individual records that you first removed, or are you just importing the whole file again? I'm just curious how that works. If it works, then I'm surprised because the error was indicating that it found a match. Sorry, it couldn't find a match. So, oh, okay. I'm thinking through. Sorry. That'll work. That's an acceptable workflow. Yes. If you're importing those same records again, just choose keep existing content. Don't choose
Right.
replace existing content or merge selected. Yeah, that's workflow. That's acceptable. That's normal. Yeah.
Okay,
Or you
awesome.
could publish. They're right there as an
Right.
import error. You could just publish them. Either one works.
Yeah. Next question is about those with control numbers and especially the altering them when there's
Mhm.
already a match made in the database or for some reason you need to change the control number and then re-import it.
Mhm.
There's questions about are there specific control numbers for a title based on format and could there be any issues with later imports if you change the control number?
Well, import's looking for either a title control number or a standard number. So uh, I suppose there's a possibility of a potential issue, but typically it's looking for either one. So if the standard number is the same in a future import, even though the title control number is now different in that local record, you've saved the record, you've published the record with that modified control number, replaced the control number or modified it. It's got all the other data in the record, like standard number, format, language, title, author, so that be seen as a match because import's looking for either one, either a title control number or a standard number. Um, Potential problem if you're an OCLC customer, because so I didn't think to mention that. I don't think I have an OCLC record to show it on handy right at this minute. Take me a while to find it. Um, if you're an OCLC member, then yes, changing that control number may be an issue, but you still need to do that in order to get that record to get into the system, into your database. But then you want to copy the existing OCLC control number that's in the 001 mark field and add it as an 035 mark field and paste it in there so that way, if you're ever doing any kind of project with OCLC for letting them know all of your records, all the titles that you own, their processing looks at the 001 mark field or the 035 to capture that OCLC accession number. That's what that is the OCLC accession number is what they use a portion of is the title control number. That make any sense?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I can think of. Generally, it doesn't cause a problem because import's looking for either title control number or a standard number.
Right. We have another question here asking about cleaning up import history. I know that's something that's on our backlog currently.
Yes, I am so looking forward to that getting done. I don't remember if there's an idea for that in LS Ideas. If I think there is, we would welcome more votes on that idea. That would push it higher in the priority. I know for some of you, especially some of you school locations that are on this webinar, you probably have pages and pages and pages of them. And they lose their effectiveness after the first couple pages. How long, how many times will you need to come back and look at your import history? We just haven't gotten development resources to get that done. So if you want, next time you're in LS Ideas, look around for that idea. I think it's called delete import history, somewhere in that subject line. And then you could add your vote to it. That'll push up the priority. If you're a school, that's especially important because we have a schools team, and the product managers on the schools team are very interested in knowing what schools want. So that would be really helpful.
And
Brianna and I happen to be on the publics team. We're still important, but we're just on a different team.
Yeah. And we've got one more question here from Angela asking about advice when you are importing a record and it doesn't replace a temporary barcode. She said that when you try to replace the temporary barcode with the physical barcode of the in-processing item, says the a error is then generated and says it exists, but no record appears when the barcode is searched.
Right, because it probably hasn't been saved to the database. If there's no matching record found, then it's the title hasn't been published. If you searched for it and couldn't find it, so it's in one of your title spaces. Let me think about why I didn't replace the on order item though. So the on order item, does it have? So you did that manually, where you didn't. It's on order that you did using a temporary. That option in the import to generate a temporary item number. I think that's what's called temporary item hold. It might be called temporary holdings field. At any rate, it generates that temporary item. You need to make sure that the shelf location says on order, on space order, either all caps or upper lowercase. That is what import is looking for, an on order item to replace. It's either coming from the OSA on order, which is a specific circulation status, or it's looking for a item that's in processing status that has a shelf location of on space order. Then it should find it. If you want to send me the specific examples, Angela, then I can take a look and see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I would expect, and if for some reason it doesn't replace that on order item as you expect, you should be able to manually replace it. It's in processing though, but you should be able to replace that barcode.
Yeah, the in processing is what made me think that possibly you would not be able to, since it's that sort of special status. So, but the import should replace it. But my guess is that there's the holdings code of on order may not be.
What you can do is, I think there's something, either the shelf location is missing, doesn't say on order, because the import's looking for that in processing status plus that on order shelf location that you configure if you're using that temporary holdings. If you manually are adding that temporary item, then you want to make sure you enter a shelf location of on space order. You could, if you just can't, I'll have to test it. It's been a while since I checked on replacing a barcode with an in processing status. I thought it worked, but maybe not. In that case, you could go and, oh, so you can't search for it, so it's not published yet. You could publish it. You could save that item. Well, it's supposed to be saved. You could publish that brief record, on order record. If you searched for it and couldn't find that temporary item barcode, that seems like the title might not be published for some reason. Because what I was going to say is it should be published title. That way it shows up in PAC for that brief on order record. That item should show in processing status. You can, in LS2 staff, you can check it in as special status lost. Then you can replace the barcode in LS2 cataloging or on LS2 staff for that matter. Then you could probably try to re-import that better record. I gave you lots of different things here.
Yeah, there's
So
a couple of different workflows there, and if
yeah,
you're still running into issues or you want to forward that along to Kim and I or
yeah,
reach out
you
to
could just
support, yeah,
send us an email. You know how to reach us, and we
yeah,
can take a look. Sometimes you have to look at the data itself. We just have to look at the title and the item and look at the title state, item state, and figure out what's going on. It can be complicated. Import's a very complex process. You should
mhm.
see the spreadsheets that we create during development because there's just so many possibilities. Um, well, hopefully I did a decent job. Um, Keep in mind if you need to see another webinar in the future that goes into more complex issues, we can certainly do that. Later this year, we'll probably put out another survey asking for suggestions for webinar topics for next year. So keep that in mind. And as always, if you have any blog post suggestions, just let me know. You can email me or you could post in Cataloger's Corner has a question form. Uh, I closed it already, but you can submit an idea there. Not really a question exactly, but hang on, I'm trying to get to it fast, although this website doesn't open fast. On Cataloger's Corner, if you don't feel like emailing me directly, down here is a form. I mean, you could suggest an improvement, or you could also just put it here as a question. We'll get it either way. Rhiannon and I get copies of these
Yeah,
automatically. All right, I guess we're done. If there's any other questions, hopefully this helped. Hopefully we didn't lose too many people.
yeah, I
Uh,
think that's all the questions that we've got. Thanks everyone for asking questions and for attending today.
I'll stop sharing. Alrighty, I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks again. And the recording will be up later today. It should be automatically posted in that recording section of the LS community, and then and on the Catalogers Corner page, and then it will also show up in the probably in this case a cataloging workflow folder once I tell the marketing team where to put it. Okay, thank you. I've got to find the end button. Bye, everybody.
Bye everyone.